Someone says something that hurts you. Your stomach drops, you pull away, and you ask yourself one question. Are they actually disrespecting me, or am I reacting this way because of what I've been through? Because social media has convinced us that every single uncomfortable feeling is either a red flag or trauma. But the truth is, it's more complicated than that. We become obsessed with labels. Red flags, gaslighting, triggered, narcissists, because it helps us explain our experiences, which is valuable. But if we push that to the extreme, we end up forgetting to ask ourselves the right question, which is, what actually happened here? Because not every uncomfortable situation means that the other person is toxic, nor that there's something wrong with you. A lot of the time, it's a miscommunication issue, because the truth is we all have different experiences, and the only way for a conversation to be healthy and for communication to be real is if both people acknowledge that. If the person you're talking to isn't willing to acknowledge that your past and experiences are different than theirs, and they're not willing to adapt to that, then you shouldn't waste your time with this person. So let's break this down. What is a trigger? It's an emotional response that is disproportionate or strongly linked to a past experience. Research in trauma psychology shows that a past event that really marked you can trigger the brain's threat system to answer in the present in a way that is objectively disproportionate to what happened. Let's explain this simply. Imagine someone making a joke about something you've constantly been criticized about in the past. To them, it's just one sentence. For you, it's bringing up a feeling of constantly feeling unsafe. That is a trigger. And it doesn't mean your reaction is irrational. It's just that your brain connected the past with the present. So let's make one thing clear. Your trigger isn't your fault, but communicating it is your responsibility. Now let's contrast it with the other big word, which is the red flag. A red flag isn't someone accidentally upsetting you. It's a consistent behavior that proves character. If they forget about a trigger that you've already communicated once, then it's not a pattern. But if they consistently do so, then that's when it becomes a pattern. Let's take two situations. If you tell them something hurt you and they apologize and they don't do it again, that's great. Green flag. That is healthy communication and holding themselves accountable for their behavior and acting accordingly to protect the relationship. Now let's take another situation. You tell them what hurt you. They laugh at you, call you dramatic, and make it about you. And they keep doing it. And that is a red flag, because the person basically doesn't respect your feelings, your communication, and your boundaries. The issue is not the first behavior, it's what happens after communicating it. Because the truth is we all have triggers, and sometimes it's uncomfortable and we don't all react the same way to them. But it's important to talk about it. You can't just say, oh, this triggers me, this triggers me, this triggers me, deal with it. No, you have to constantly be working on it, but you can still bring it up and say to the person, I'm sorry if I got a little snappy or cold after you said that, but it really upset me because of this. It's important to communicate it. And that way you can find a common ground and you can working out with the person by communicating. And it's from those experiences that I realized that the trigger in itself wasn't the red flag. It was the response to my honesty that was. It's not the fact that someone once said something upsetting that makes them a bad person. It's whether they're willing to apologize, whether they're willing to acknowledge what they've done. That makes it either someone you can have a healthy conversation with, or it doesn't, because we're initially fundamentally different. And as I said, we have different experiences. So what upsets you might not upset somebody else. But what upsets you is valid. And that's what the other person needs to understand. And if they don't, that's fine. But then they shouldn't expect you to stay and to keep engaging, because you are someone who deserves respect and who acts like it. Now let's bring in the practical stuff, because we all know how much I love a good action plan. So I call this the 3-step test to really bring this into action. So the next time someone hurts you, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. The first one being, did they know? Did they know that this was a sensitive subject? Did they know that it's something you personally struggle with, and were they voluntarily careless about it? Question number 2, did they care once they knew? So if they didn't know, okay, you explain it to them. Do they care now? Do they say, yes, I'm sorry, I understand that, I won't do that again? Or do they say, oh, it wasn't my intention, therefore it doesn't matter. Oh, you're just being over dramatic, it was just a joke. That kind of stuff. That's information. And then question number 3, is this becoming a pattern? Did this happen once, or is this happening consistently? If it is happening consistently, you're not dealing with a simple trigger, you're dealing with consistent disrespect. So now that we understand the fundamental difference between a trigger and a red flag, I want to talk a little bit about how do we handle our triggers so we don't become a red flag ourselves. Because sometimes by trying to protect ourselves so bad, we end up hurting others by expecting them to know everything. But the truth is, your triggers are your responsibility, in the sense that what happened to you is now meant for you to deal with. You can't expect someone else to fix it for you, is what I mean. So that's something you need to work on, and associate the past with the present, but break that link slowly. And it's not always easy. It might always bother you a little bit, but you can make that feeling much less present by doing the inner work. So let's bring up an example. Let's take Tina, for example. She grew up in a modest environment, but was surrounded with people who had more money than her. So she got lucky to get into a good school, which is great, but everybody around her had different ways of speaking, even if it was subtle. They always had nicer clothes, nicer cars. Their parent had nicer cars and houses, and she kind of felt out of place. She lived further from everybody else, and she kind of felt left out. So growing up, she meets this friend at work who ends up talking to her and makes a joke about her living so far away. But the thing is, Tina has been struggling with this for years. So it is extremely upsetting to her that this person would make a joke about something that hurts so much. So from that example, you can learn to rationalize that trigger, even if it doesn't completely go away right away. So if you were Tina, you could say to yourself, this person doesn't know what I've been through. That's the first one. Especially if they're just a coworker, you're not going to talk to them about your entire life. And once again, if it becomes consistent, you can just tell them that you're uncomfortable with the conversation. That's totally fine. But if they just bring it up once, it can be a way to remind yourself, all right, I have to work on this. Even if it's in the past, even if it's over now, it might still bother you today. And a little bit of work on it can really make a big difference. So ask yourself, why does him bringing that up bother me so much? Maybe because I still feel a bit out of place today. Maybe because growing up that way, feeling different, made me feel like maybe I wasn't worthy to have money. Why is it that every other kid at my school had enough money in abundance, but my family didn't? How is it that coming out of school, they all had the perfect network, but I didn't? All right, well, life is unfair. So if you were Tina, you could write down all the things that these kids do not have, but that you got blessed with. And that's how you move forward, looking at the positive things. Okay, the bad happened. Okay, it did. But now let's move on. So going back to that coworker, this guy was just laughing about it. And yes, maybe you live further from everybody else, but it's not always going to be the case. So Tina might have her plan in her mind, and she could be saying to herself, well, one day I'm gonna live in the city and I'm gonna have a great apartment. And that's her personal dream. And that way she can let go of that past limiting belief that kept following her and kept triggering her today. And that's how you can too. Because healing is not becoming someone who never gets triggered. Healing is learning the difference between a wound that needs compassion and a relationship that needs distance. Sometimes the problem is the past. Sometimes it's the person in front of you. Wisdom is being able to tell the difference. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you're gonna take those steps into account and start getting to work right away. And take care, and I will see you in the next video.